Your thoughts, freedomandequallyyokeshow.com. Honored to be with you tonight. We've got some news of the Senator Lindsey Graham, who just passed away at 71. We're going to be going over that later. Of course, we have some of the details that we're going to be looking at from the Charlie Kirk, the finalization of this, the conclusion of the preliminary hearings of probable cause for this case. It's incredible, the stuff that we're learning and the stuff that we're witnessing. Now, if it's your first time here, please consider subscribing, like, share, and email me your thoughts, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. Let's wait for a few folks to just join in here as we in the chat below, and we will get started momentarily. And so, once again, honored to be with you tonight as we got a crazy packed show for you. So hopefully you guys are tuned in, locked in, got your coffee ready. We got a lot of stuff to cover, and we're just going to get started. All right. So here's what we got going on so far. Okay. We have one thing that is really surprising. Well, maybe surprising to some, but reflecting on what has transpired over the week of the preliminary hearings, we're quickly approaching the anniversary of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The judge, during the conclusion of prelims, stated that they'll reconvene and decide whether or not he has found probable cause. The one thing following this can be summarized in this: overwhelming evidence. But we must know some context, some of which Charlie Kirk knew something could happen if the rhetoric from the left continued as it was and still is. Let's take a look at this clip here for a moment.
Many years ago, in this clip, we have to, and that's 2020, Blake.
Let me back up here. Oh, you know what? No. We're in the right spot.
Cooker with
379.
My fear, Senator, and I hope I'm wrong, and let's stay in prayer that I'm wrong, that someone is going to get shot the same way that Steve Scalise got shot, and God forbid, killed. The left is creating a pressure cooker with so many of their rank and file paramilitary troops that very well might result in one of us getting shot or killed. God forbid that happens. We're getting death threats every single day here on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Now, what he said here, just a couple of years ago, is almost prophetic in nature, because he talks about the left creating this pressure cooker that is building this assassination culture. And what we witnessed in the last year, approaching the anniversary of Charlie Kirk's assassination, they've called Charlie Kirk a racist. They've called him a bigot, fascist, white supremacist, and the list goes on. The algorithm played heavily into this. Clips out of context would circulate, adding fuel to the fire. But how we've gotten to this point, and when will we finally get justice for Charlie? Now, as we said before, the evidence is overwhelming. Let's take a look at some of these series of tapes here. We're going to be looking at a few of the things that are just sort of a recap from the final day of hearings. Now, this was Friday. We're here on Sunday. And we just want to take these through piece by piece to really understand the context of everything. So let's take a look.
Why don't you, the biggest piece of evidence you saw that was admitted in court for the public viewing, what was it? What would you say it was?
There was a lot, thankfully, as we can say. I think we go back to the thing that the defense was most eager to move past, that we have Lance Twiggs on camera. He says, yep, I received these text messages from Tyler Robinson. I'm the guy who did it. He says, check for this note. We saw more detail of that conversation than we saw before, where we actually have Tyler, say, F, I thought I deleted this. He seems to have mistakenly roped Lance Twiggs in. He details trying to retrieve his rifle. We have the description of the note. We were mistakenly shown an image of that note. We see the burned version of that note. We see Lance Twiggs. We heard Lance Twiggs say he confessed to me in person, crying, saying he didn't want to do it, or he wishes he hadn't done it. And I think that in concert with the physical evidence, and whether they have 100, can they match this bullet to the exact gun, or is it only the same category? That is so beside the point when all evidence you have supports the claim that Tyler Robinson did it.
Now, there was a lot of theories, of course, with the bullets and how there was no exit wound. We, of course, got we got a picture, a view of the medical examiner report. Now, obviously, the medical examiner himself would be in the courtroom during the actual trial. However, we have an agent testifying to this medical examiner report, and then we have the ATF, some of the reports from the state and from the prosecutorial team, and then the defense, and they're trying to create this narrative that because the bullet, the DNA, talking about 1 in a trillion, how it could match to Tyler Robinson, how there was many people matching to this bullet. There was a lot of theories that were spinning out of this alone. And of course, Candace Owens had to jump on the bandwagon on X, talking about the bullet, talking about the phone that is cracked because of the screenshots of the text messages between Lance and Tyler Robinson with the confession, how it's so conveniently broken. The problem with Candace Owens is that she continues to try to find any minute thing in order to keep herself credible in this high stakes preliminary trial leading up to the trial. And even then, we might not see something up until next year, possibly. So from the friends and family of Charlie who attended the courtroom, including a news outlet in Utah, there were a lot of private viewing at the request of the family regarding an enhanced video that highlights moment by moment of Tyler approaching the area where he would eventually execute Charlie. And what we've been hearing from all of the folks who were there to witness this is how detailed this video is, from the security footage, everything leading up to him building the rifle, using the screwdriver to take it apart, put it together, everything. All detailed in this video that they saw, that of course wasn't available for public viewing and only for specific members that were allowed to view this. Of course, at the approval of the judge.
And when you have direct confession to it, it truly is overwhelming. It almost feels like we're being toyed with or something, that this is even up for debate to me.
And I think this is public. It's public domain. This is from Heidi Hatch, KUTV reporter. So she says, and we're pulling this video, but after the defense final DNA witness, the court allowed the family to watch the zoomed-in surveillance video from Utah Valley University, okay? Remember, a little bit, rewind the tape here. There was a huge rigmarole about the enhanced video, right?
So this is zoomed in.
Yeah, zoomed in, and it's the quality I'm being told is it's surprisingly high. And they called it the John Madden kind of style video because, I think they circle it and they zoom in. They draw your eye to kind of where Tyler's walking around on campus. She said, Heidi Hatch says, even zoomed in, the quality of the video is surprisingly high. Because remember, there's press in the courtroom that was able to watch this as well. It just wasn't broadcast to the public. You could see the man on the roof, reportedly, this is her words, reportedly Tyler Robinson getting down into that whine or prone position before the shot was fired. The video showing Robinson allegedly returning to campus with jeans on shows that very distinct limp with the rifle likely in the leg of his pants. You apparently can see things.
We have another source, someone who was able to see it. He says, you see the person that we believe is Tyler Robinson. You can see them go over the guardrail, crouch down to assemble the rifle, run across the roof, crouch down.
Yeah.
Take the shot at the time where we know it occurred.
We know the shot happened at 12:23:28. So you see this person roll over the sort of railing or whatever that was to the rooftop of the Losi Center. And then Heidi goes on. This is, again, the KUTV local reporter there in Salt Lake City. She says, heartbreaking to watch Erica Kirk and Charlie's parents as they watched in greater detail these final moments before Charlie was shot and killed on campus.
Now, this video that a lot of these folks are pushing for release, for public release, for people to see. Now, the judge is, of course, trying to create to make sure that there is no possible way of the defense attempting to go back and, basically say that Tyler Robinson did not have a fair shot at this. And so we see that I do believe that although through all of this, we understand one thing. God tells us that a righteous man is taken away from calamity or evil. Now, there's more to unpack concerning that Bible verse, which I won't go to that on this podcast. However, the fact is that it has taken this long to arrive at a decision that requires more time. And I understand that this process must be tedious. We just want justice. And I want to know your thoughts. Let me know in the chat. You can also email me, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. Now, let's take a look at this piece of tape. This is Frank Turk, who was there in the vehicle himself, talking a little bit more about his what he witnessed there in Utah as these prelims are happening, because there's many family and friends that are supporting Erica and her family. And for those that are just joining in, welcome to the podcast. Let's take a look at this piece of tape here.
Despite what prosecutors say is overwhelming evidence against Tyler Robinson, the judge could wait until potentially September 1st to decide if the case goes to trial. The Kirk family releasing a statement saying, quote, as difficult as these last few days have been, it brings our family comfort to know that the world has witnessed the overwhelming evidence of what occurred to Charlie that day. With us now, Dr. Frank Turek, Charlie Kirk's mentor, who was in the car with Charlie during his final moments. Good morning, Frank. So let's talk about, we all, the country watched. This was quite an avalanche of evidence. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely, Griff. Not only do we have video evidence, we have confessions from Tyler Robinson in 3 different ways. He confessed over text. He confessed in a written confession letter to Lance Twiggs. So it's just an avalanche of evidence, Griff. And normally, as you know, people will plead within 30 days of being arrested. We're at 10 months yesterday, Griff. And we don't even have a plea. We don't even have a court date. What we have is a date for when the judge is going to say we have probable cause. Griff, we had probable cause in the first 10 minutes of this hearing, it seems.
Now, madam, you say, I am no Charlie Kirk follower, but Tyler Robinson deserves the maximum penalty. And I think many people who are witnessing this from the outside perspective, who don't follow Charlie Kirk, who don't really watch his content, who have never really heard anything of his content, we see that there is still the evidence that is put before the public who is able to see what they are able to see prior to the trial. Now, mind you, again, just to reiterate, this is probable cause. This is not an evidentiary hearing to look at all the evidence and say, well, Tyler's guilty because of said, so and so. They're bringing, agents who testify to seeing these reports of the medical examiner, to seeing the ATF reports, the security camera footage, all of this stuff. So they're gathering as much in order to determine probable cause. And not only do we not get anything September 1st, we're only going to get a decision whether probable cause, there was probable cause to move forward to a trial. And so what we're hearing so far is overwhelming evidence of how much it's damaging. And that's what some of that's what the state is saying. The prosecutorial team is saying concerning this case here, because of what they've presented at the final preliminary hearings. Now, you mentioned again that he deserves maximum penalty. At this point, essentially what they're doing is the defense of Tyler Robinson, they're just trying to save his life. And so they're trying to object to every single piece of evidence here. So all they want to do is save his life. If not, if Judge Tony Graff, does an error here, they're going to try to file for an appeal, which this is what all this to avoid these sort of extra delays here. As the representative for the Kirk family, the counsel said that they have a right to a fair and speedy trial, not this long drawn out delayed, preliminary up to just leading up to the preliminary hearings.
Monday, there was enough time to go to a trial. Or enough evidence to go to a trial. So I know the judge is being cautious because he doesn't want to be overturned on appeal due to some procedural error. But it really seems he's kind of going overboard with the caution here.
It has been shocking, Frank, to the whole country that this trial may not even begin until the one-year anniversary and beyond of this tragedy. The victim's family statement in support of a speedy disposition for getting this moving says this: the defendant is entitled to a fair trial and he must receive one. He is not, however, entitled to cause undue delay in the criminal justice process. The victim's family is independently entitled to a speedy resolution. It brings me, Frank, to I can't begin to imagine how difficult this is on the Kirk family.
Yeah, I was out there in Utah with the family and with the TPUSA team. I was not allowed into the courtroom because no eyewitness, according to the judge, was allowed into the courtroom. But I can, who was out there to support Erica and Mr. and Mrs. Kirk. It is extremely difficult to do this. It has to be done, quite obviously. Everyone deserves a fair trial, innocent until proven guilty. We don't believe in smearing people or coming up with conspiracy theories that have no basis in evidence. Notice how the defense, by the way, didn't try and advance any of the conspiracy theories out there because there really is no evidence for them. No. And so evidence is necessary for justice. I just think that it needs to proceed a little bit quicker because, as you may know, Griff, there are some high-power attorneys running up the bill there for the defense that they're using taxpayer dollars for a defense that is really grasping at straws right now. There's so much evidence against Tyler Robinson that we ought to go to trial very quickly. And I'm afraid it's going to be probably next summer before the trial starts.
Now, all this is key information because it's true. I mean, all of this, Tyler Robinson is getting these defense attorneys at the bequest of the taxpayer dollar. And, the further we go down this trail of evidence, we even have J.D. Vance, who said during an interview that he has no doubt that Robinson pulled the trigger and killed Kirk, claiming that he thinks that the evidence is clear on that. However, he also shared his conspiracy theory that there were more people possibly directly involved with this shooting. He says, this is a quote, "I'm always going to wonder what was said and how many contacts Robinson had beforehand." By the way, it doesn't mean that Robinson's any less guilty. He added, "But I do wonder if there's any other people who are more directly involved in Charlie's murder." Absolutely, because I don't think that it's possible for a young man to get radicalized like that without somebody encouraging him, whether informally or formally. And we also look at the Butler case with Thomas Crooks, where we have this sort of unknown, this trace of that was seemingly being erased as to, the fact that he had no social media trail, that suddenly this kid popped up on the radar and was just super radicalized out of nowhere, but did have a social media trail that many social media accounts were found. And so we wonder, how does somebody like Thomas Crooks or Tyler Robinson become so radicalized to the point of taking action, where they believe, in Robinson's own words, that he had enough of his hate. But for the commenter GoHabs that says Charlie Kirk condoned what happened to Charlie Kirk, when there's no sort of evidence that is presented that Charlie was somebody who, as people have called him, a racist, a bigot, a fascist, white supremacist. So you can try to point these out, but despite what you try to, what you attempt at, any clips that you try to bring, they're all taken out of context. We can go back, we can do the research, you can find literally the context as to what he said in those podcasts, in those debates, in those interviews, whatever you want to pull up, and which we've done on this podcast following his death, because we knew, I should say assassination, because we knew that there were lies being spread online. And we shared some of those lies and debunked them here on this show. You can go back to the beginning of, or the end of 2025 after his death, and we covered that stuff. But here's Jack Posobiec, who was there at to watch this video, and he explains it carefully. And it's gruesome.
Jack, you were in the courtroom for this viewing of this video, the enhanced video. Tell us what you saw.
Look, guys, I'm not gonna mince words. All right, I'm gonna be blunt, because you see him shooting Charlie, you see him executing Charlie, you see him take the shot, and so you've seen the video. And Blake, I know you were there, man, and it was like watching Charlie die all over again. Seeing this video, it's the most damning thing I've seen all week for Tyler Robinson. With the zoom in, it just changes everything. It's like watching a completely different video, because the one that zoomed out, you can't even see anything. This one, he walks up. It's just like the officer said earlier in the, I guess it was day one, that he walks up over the guardrail, goes down, and you could see him kind of working on something, and it's, I believe that's when he was assembling the rifle. He then stands up. He runs very quickly across the gravel roof to the edge, and then when he gets to the edge, you see him go down, and he's in the prone position, and it's, they have this clock, like the timestamp that's up, and it's 12:20. I think it's 12:21, 12:22 when he first gets there, and I'm just sitting there like, stop the clock, like don't, like trying to will time to stop, like don't get to 12:23.
Like you'll begin to see Jack getting more and more visibly frustrated and angry because of what happened. Obviously, it's one of Charlie Kirk's good friends here, close friends, maybe even consider him family. I'm not exactly sure, but they're always on. They grew this movement together. And Ite, you say mass deportations was never just about deporting illegal criminal immigrants. It is about racism. Anti-DEI translates to white supremacy. Merit hires translates to white men only, even unqualified white. Now we've gone through these issues, the series of issues of mass deportations concerning the illegal immigrants that were targeted by ICE, and from what has been uncovered with the independent journalists, even CNN going to look at some of what not Tyler Robinson, I just said his name. Nick Shirley, I actually didn't say his name. Nick Shirley did in California, what he did looking at these hospices, and what is happening and unfolding still in Minnesota, where you're looking at somebody who just pled guilty, one of the fraudsters who pled guilty to $300 million in fraud schemes. One of those who was featured, I believe, in the Nick Shirley video. And so the investigations that have gone on to deport some of the those who were committing fraud in Minnesota, in California, you begin to see the trail of evidence that is clear. We're going to address that later. right? Well, I want to get back to this video here. Because you also mentioned, anti-DEI translates. We looked at some of the DEI issues in this podcast. So if you want to stick, we can stick and talk about that later in this podcast. I want to know your thoughts concerning all of this that we're talking about. Thanks for sharing your comment.
Just don't get to 12:23. And he gets back up, and then he runs across, and you've seen the end of it already, where he makes the jump, but it's all there. It's all there. It's on video. It all lines up, and I got very, very angry watching this video in court. I was gripping the seat. I think I almost broke my rosary. And to know that Erica and Charlie's parents had to watch this with Tyler, and he was sitting right there, and he wouldn't even look, by the way. He wouldn't even look. And someone told me that his own monitor was off. He wouldn't even look at the video as it was being played of what he did. And the fact that he was so close to us, it is an unspeakable evil. Since seeing the original video, this is the worst thing I've seen.
Now, some of the folks that were there in the courthouse, because a lot of who Erica Kirk had surrounding her was, of course, Charlie's parents, which there was a whole conspiracy as to where were Charlie's parents during his memorial. And they were there the whole time, except people don't really know who Charlie's parents are, probably for the better, because obviously the scrutiny that Charlie got, he would want to protect his family, his own sister, from being targeted because of this pressure cooker that Charlie Kirk warned that we looked at the top of the show. Now, I want to take you to that clip for those that were just joining when we played that. And it's very important, very key to understand the context as to what happened leading up to, where the economy was going, I should say, where politics were turning to in this culture of assassinations, because we saw with obviously what happened with Charlie Kirk, the multiple attempts on Donald Trump, of course, now with new threats from the Iranian regime, talking about that there's a plan to take him out during his visit to Turkey. So this clip is, I think, pertinent to what we're talking about. This is him just prior to just a couple of months before his assassination. Or a couple, I think I forget when this show originally aired. However, they re-aired this clip in the beginning of this year.
And I hope I'm wrong, and let's stay in prayer that I'm wrong, that someone is going to get shot the same way that Steve Scalise got shot, and God forbid, killed. The left is creating a pressure cooker with us getting shot or killed. God forbid that happens. We're getting death threats every single day here on the Charlie Kirk Show.
He said it correctly. There were ongoing death threats, and we looked at a clip yesterday concerning this I kind of lost my trail. It was a clip with Charlie and his wife, that if Charlie is bothered that his wife gets hate, he says no, and Erica Kirk even says, bring it on. All the hate that I get, they know that they're called by God to do this. And despite the hate that Erica Kirk continues to get, especially by people who are so-called Christians, who are forsaking what the scriptures say concerning the believer, of the widow, of the fatherless. Because you're not only attacking Erica Kirk, you're attacking her children, Charlie's children. This is what we've come to. This is what the society has come to. Ite, you say you'll find government fraud in every American city, NYC, Louisiana, Kentucky, Mississippi, Texas. Yes, you can find you can find fraud, and it should be found, and it should be people should be prosecuted for fraud. You give them the justice full. You'll take them to court to figure out where fraud was committed. And we have to remember that a lot of these cases that came out of people who were actually doing political witch hunts leading up to Donald Trump's 2024 election, that we saw how involved the Biden administration was to usurp, or rather, I should say, use their power of the DOJ in order to remove Trump from ever running for office again, facing, I believe, up to 700 years in federal prison. And with the bogus summer of indictments that came, 2023, 2024, you saw how deep this state, the deep state was, keep on and hold on to power. Because they knew what would happen, that accountability would happen if Trump was then elected back into office. Accountability would happen. You wouldn't have people like James Comey doing 8647, who knows very well, he was the head of the FBI, knows very well what 8647 says. Oh, look at this seashell formation. This is God's work here. Look at this. Somehow, the earth created 8647. We just snap a photo and post it online, then later delete it. We have so many instances that we could trace back to what they were trying to do to Donald Trump in order to prevent him from running again, as we said. Let's take a listen further at this high resolution clip that they talk about, that they're hoping gets out to the public. Let's take a listen.
This is the worst thing I've seen. Other than the actual, it was very hard to watch. Yeah, there was a shockwave across the entire crowd. And by the way, the video, so you could see him walking up too. And the video that we can see, and this, I need to explain this to everybody who, and by the way, sorry, I know I'm jumping around. I'm a little flustered, but the video that we see played on that monitor is so much more clear than the video that's on the live stream. When you see him walking around, it's not just a blurry guy or a pixelated guy, it's Tyler Robinson. It's just very obviously, when he's there in the red shirt and the shorts and then he comes back in all black, it's the same guy. It's just obviously him. There's no question about it. It's so crystal clear. And every single one of these videos needs to be released publicly in its raw form so that everyone can see that. I understand, certain things they're holding back until trial. I get all that, right? But everyone needs to understand it's on video. Okay, it's on video. It is him. Benny Johnson came by today, and he hadn't been there early in the week, and he said he was stunned because he's been watching the live stream. I'm not watching the live stream. And he said he was stunned at how much better the video quality is when you're sitting there. And I guess, compression and it's live stream and the quality, whatever, we all know the tech, but it's very obviously him walking up to that roof.
So,
and then to know and see, we all know what happened, but to see it, it's just playing over and over again in my head.
Jack, thank you for sharing that. And again, my thoughts instantly go to Erica and Kathy and Rob having to see the very moment that Charlie's life was robbed from him. You said, just to be clear, you said that in this enhanced video, you can see him taking the shot. In the prone position, you see him taking the shot. And I asked just because I'm sure there's going to be questions about it. Was there any explanation of how the video was enhanced?
It's just a simple zoom in. It's not anything other than that. It's just literally just zoomed in. It's like, how when he first when we didn't know who Tyler Robinson was, and they put out that first video of him dropping off the, the awning, I guess, of the Losi building. It's the 5 minutes or so prior to that. So it looks pretty similar to that in terms of quality. It's just that same, it's just a zoom in process. There's no, it doesn't look like there's any AI upscaling or any of that stuff. It literally just looks like a zoom in on.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, of how just wild what we're seeing with this Charlie Kirk case and how it's beginning to play out, we also had the theories of the bullet shell casings and the jacket of everything that was going on concerning this. They had a member of the ATF testifying, and they were looking at this bullet, and we found out that it was a soft shell that essentially was utilized in this assassination as to answers as to why we didn't see an exit wound based on the medical examiner report. And so this is some of the information that we saw. Let's take a listen.
I was kind of fascinated by the bullet casings being etched with different sayings, different phrases in here. And we can put these up on the screen. The bullets were shown in
Thanks for
court.
joining.
That's the exhibit right there. You see, hey, fascist, catch, Obella Chow. We've talked about that a lot. What I was also interested in is this kind of, the whole idea that Tyler Robinson, that Lance Twiggs and Tyler Robinson were kind of going this back and forth about how they can etch bullets and the tool used to etch the bullets. And here's how that played out. Watch.
He had said he was planning to go hunting with his family, and he asked me if we had a Dremel because he said he wanted to engrave messages on bullets, and I just told him where our Dremel was.
How long before September 10th was this that he asked about the Dremel?
I'd say at most a month before this was when he was asking.
Was the goal in your assessment, Josh, that Tyler Robinson was intending for this message to be heard, that this message was intended solely for Charlie Kirk, or these messages?
I think absolutely. And even beyond that, this fits into our discussion about the death penalty. He wrote in these etchings, they were jokes. They were references to internet memes and gaming culture. And literally, it was a joke to him. So this man, at one point, if the prosecution gets their way, is going to be standing in front of a jury to decide whether or not he lives or dies. And the prosecutors can say, listen, he considered the assassination of Charlie Kirk a joke, yet now he wants you to take his life seriously. I think those etchings are very powerful evidence when it comes down to that argument to be made to a future jury.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is that the defense wanted to eliminate from the admittance of one of their board members who discussed the viewpoints of Turning Point USA, of Charlie Kirk, politically, religiously, and they wanted to throw that out because they wanted to say that this wasn't at least try to avoid using the language of, this is not a politically motivated attack, or this wasn't a religiously motivated attack. This was solely, to prove Tyler Robinson's mindset as to why he went and did what he did. Very hard to prove somebody's mindset if you don't have this sort of reasoning behind what motivated them to do that in the first place. You can claim anything. The defense can say, well, that's not true. Or, as a representing Tyler Robinson, they could say XYZ if they were able to throw that out. But I want to know your thoughts. Email me, freedom@equallyogeshow.com. By the way, if you don't know, that is it's a callback to Charlie's actual email from his podcast. It's freedom@charliekirk.com. I almost said it exactly verbatim. freedom@equallyogeshow.com. You can email me your thoughts there and also in the chat. So we know from some of the latest news that is just blew up online. Somebody mentioned in the chat as well, Lindsey Graham died from the Washington Post saying of aortic dissection. Okay, preliminary medical report says says Graham died hours after returning from the trip to Ukraine. Trump said he spoke with the senator Saturday evening and that, quote, could have been his last call. Now, people are saying, well, this is interesting because the IRGC and Russia has also claimed to put a target on his head. The IRGC is even saying that they're the ones that took Senator Lindsey Graham out. So he died suddenly, his office said, prompting tributes from President Donald Trump and lawmakers from both parties who recalled his record as a foreign policy hawk. Deep friendship he forgot during his 3 decades, forged during his 3 decades in Congress. It says here in a statement, Graham's office said, preliminary findings from the D.C. Medical Examiner's Office found that Graham suffered from an aortic dissection, in which a tear occurs in the inner layer of the main artery. This was caused by arterioscleric I'm not even trying to pronounce that. I can't. Arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease. Wow, what a big word. We learned a big word today, guys. I don't even know how to pronounce that still. The statement said these tears usually occur when there is high blood pressure. Now, the media is going crazy, all of this. Of course, you're seeing these reports all throughout online. But we go back to we go to this whole scenario with Lindsey Graham, with what's happening with Iran, and all these sort of moments happening seemingly at once. Politically, we see all these issues. Of course, also at the top of the list is the left's pressure cooker. Not only has the left vowed to take on Trump, be it the judicial court, the legislative branch, or by showing up to Iran and chanting down with the USA. Jackson Hinkle, social media influencer who has a relatively big social media following, showed his support in Iran during Khomeini's memorial. And so this is him. I mean, this is wild. You talk about, well, this is all Trump's doing in the US. This is what you see from the left. This is how they like to support other nations, not America. Mind you, he's known as a political commentator, American political commentator. That's what the New York Post calls him. I mean, this is truly a radicalized guy. Just listen.
Down with USA! Down with USA! Down with Zionists! Down with Zionists! Down with USA! Down with Israel! Down with Israel!
It's just crazy that we continue to entertain people like this. People who are anti-American, who will not put America first, who will say America is built on racism. They'll say that, the 1619 Project. They'll go all in on these ideas that America was founded on, slavery, such and such. They'll continue on with the false narrative of how America started. And so we're seeing what Iran is doing, and something that they've chanted for decades concerning America, because they hate America. They hate freedom. They hate the Western ideology. What built the West, the book that built the West, was, of course, the Bible, the scriptures. We know that Islam is not compatible with Western ideology. This is something that is fundamental to America and the freedoms in which we have, which was founded by our forefathers. We look at what this nation was established to be. It is a great experiment. And so, by the way, for you saying Lolums, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce your name, but are you saying America isn't founded on slavery? Now you look at the two settlements. We can go into detail, which we've gone to detail in another broadcast. We're not going to go. We could go to detail. We're not going to go too much into detail. I'm going to explain one thing here. We have two settlements that came, right? One was Jamestown. Later we have Plymouth. Plymouth came when they were blown off course, and they landed, instead of landing to where their trajectory to land in the Americas, they came over to, I believe it's Massachusetts, and they established the Mayflower Compact. And you get their goal in the first sentence. What they were attempting to advance, that is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And you talk about, oh, well, some of these founding fathers had slaves. Well, yes, if they released these slaves, they would then be captured and killed. They were protecting their lives. They were mistreating them, protecting them. And you can go back and trace through history as to who these men were and what they were attempting to do to eventually free these slaves, leading up to Abraham Lincoln, leading up to the other incredible moments in American history. And so when you don't look back at history, which we're not going to go to on this podcast, we have a couple of other things to go through. We can do that in another podcast. We can talk about slavery. We can talk about biblical slavery. We can do all of that stuff. Now, our big concern with the Iranian regime, for the folks that are just joining in, welcome to the podcast. Share me your thoughts in the chat. Email me your thoughts. Also, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. You say here, Mezman, America was founded on fundamentalist Christian principles. It was actually founded with a Judeo-Christian values that helped implement not only the Constitution, the declaration that is declaring independence from Britain. We see that God is woven throughout the start of the colonies, there's 13 colonies, to the first documents. We look at these documents as to what they were established to be and how they always understood the truth that God is the one who governs in the affairs of man. It took them a while to get there. But this is what we're seeing. We're seeing this issue of the Iranian regime, where now, of course, someone mentioned in the chat earlier, about 5 months into this war with Iran, and we've gotten nowhere, $2 billion spent every day, and all for nothing. But you're seeing who the Iranian regime is. They want to attempt to assassinate our president. Now, if you think that's nothing, well, I think you got to rethink your perspective here, because that is very delusional to say, well, get rid of the leader of America. And people will say, they'll try to combat that with, well, then they shouldn't have eliminated the Ayatollah. But the problem stems from 1979. 1979, where the Iranian or the IRGC was founded, or rather established, taking over the Shah, and they made promises to all the people, the Persians, that this would be a flourishing economy under socialism, under Sharia law. Well, what happened since? We saw this nation severely decline from what was a thriving nation to now a failing nation. So let's take a listen.
I think it's important for Americans to understand that what the Iranians are saying and doing is nothing that they haven't been doing for 47 years. This is a long-standing death to America chant that they've had. They really haven't changed. I hope they will. I'd love to believe they could. If anyone, and I mean if anyone, could get them to a place of making a change about their evil behavior, it's President Trump. If he can't do it, it can't be done.
On that specific plot you're talking about, there's reporting that perhaps that was the reason why he switched planes when he left the NATO summit. Have you been read in on anything about that plot?
I can only speak to what's in the public reports,
Okay.
and that is that there was a plot and that Israeli intelligence picked it up and shared it with the U.S. But that's public knowledge. That's all I can really add to that.
Okay. Sir, today CBS is reporting that the Iranians privately told the administration that those attacks on the ships in the Strait of Hormuz, that was a big mistake, and that there might be some sort of a tug of war when it comes to power within the current regime between the hardliners and the people that actually want to do business with President Trump. Do you buy that, or do you think that that's just the Iranians sweet talking?
You know, I'd like to believe that there is some level of moderation among some of them, but we don't see any what I would call significant evidence that there is a real peaceful part of the Iranian regime. Let's hope.
Now, we have to remember the Iranian regime that has put people to stand in front of these high stakes areas that Trump said that they would strike. And so they put their own civilian population as human body shields. Where have we seen this from? We've seen this from Hamas themselves, where they put civilians in harm's way. This is their tactic. This is how they get you. This is how they pull on your heartstrings and say, America is committing genocide because they're killing innocent civilians. And they cause the casualties. But you're also seeing Zoran Mamdani and the planned meeting that was scrubbed with the Iranian ambassador to the UN. Let's take a look.
Reports that a senior advisor to New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani had plans to meet with Iran's ambassador to the United Nations. The State Department says it stepped in to quash the meeting. CB Cotton is live in New York with more. Hi, CB.
Hey, Mike. So after the State Department reportedly stepped in to clarify acceptable conduct, we're told that it was Mayor Mamdani who ultimately called off the meeting between his Commissioner for International Affairs, Anna Maria Archila, and Iran's UN Ambassador Amir Said Iravani. Archila was reportedly reprimanded for the move, but the fact that the meeting was even considered continues to raise eyebrows, including from U.S. Ambassador Mike Waltz, who reacted today on Sunday Morning Futures.
It would have been a huge propaganda victory for the Ayatollah in the middle of a conflict, as they're not only shooting at Americans, but they're shooting at global shipping, and we're doing everything we can to keep them internationally isolated. It's outrageous, and we shut it down.
We have folks that are clearly anti-American, people who want to see the death of America within our own country. So-called Americans who, yes, are born here, want America to be destroyed because they believe that America is this, police that needs to be checked. The world police that needs to be checked, that it has too much power beyond its reaches. We need to reel it back in. We need to say, well, let's eliminate our president. Let's make sure America falls at the hands of the Iranian regime. They will see to it to build this pressure. So far, they'll take it so far to where they will attempt, as we've seen with the Iranian regime, they will attempt to assassinate the president. This is what they have sought to do since 2016. Because he's the only one that has a proven track record to be able to make change and do the hard things when nobody is able to do those difficult moves. But instead, you give fuel to the fire. You talk about Barack Obama sending pallets of cash to the Iranian regime. Trillions. And say, well, it's okay. They're going to use it for good. They're going to use it to build their economy. We'll just give it to them. It'll hold them off for a little bit longer, just to till we get to the next presidency. And then this falls upon the next president, Donald J. Trump, who has to fix this problem. A problem with the regime who has talked about death to America, death to Israel for 47 years. At what point is somebody going to, how long will you continue to entertain this type of rhetoric until it eventually comes into fruition, until they eventually act on their promises? And so we continue on a little bit further here on this UN meeting with Mamdani.
Mamdani, when addressing the controversy this week, said he didn't know about it in advance. He also said it was the Iranian ambassador who requested the meeting.
Oh, by the way, Mamdani, who said that they balanced the budget to zero when actually they just deferred it. It's still going to come out of the American taxpayer. The New York taxpayer dollar is... New Yorkers are done under socialist Zoran Mamdani. Mind you, the one candidate that Bernie Sanders said, candidate, he's the mayor, the one person they said that he wants to do what they did in New York with Zoran Mamdani all across the country. This is why we're seeing so many democratic socialists pop up in California. We see in New York. We see in these other, but we see even the mayoral races across the nation. We see the new 3 congressional backed candidates that just won the primary were backed by Mamdani and by Bernie Sanders. People who are very anti-American, anti-border, anti-ICE. Invite the third world, become the third world. This is who they want. This is what they want. Let's continue on.
And that his team is now working on new protocols.
The commissioner recognizes that this was made an error, and we're working on a new process in terms of new meeting requests. Again, this was a request that came into the office, not one that originated from the office.
So the timing of the attempted meeting comes when President Trump has repeatedly said he is #1 on Iran's, quote, kill list. And Israel recently shared intelligence with Trump about an Iranian plot to assassinate him, according to a Wall Street Journal report. Mike.
And so we have, of course, not only what the issues with Zoran Mamdani and what is happening there in New York, we also have this birthright citizenship case that we just heard from the Supreme Court not that long ago, the ruling that they would sustain this sort of law, the 14th Amendment, and say that it is still applicable. Or we could just sort of blanket statement the 14th Amendment, allow a birthright citizenship. There were, of course, conflicting opinions with some of the justices concerning that. And when we begin to look further into what these justices say, we see even one of the justices, Clarence Thomas, who talks about this grave concern for America. He says today's opinion devalues that citizenship. He's not sure that today's opinion will stand the test of time. And so we even have Tim Walz, Tim Walz, who pardoned a sexual offender, a child predator, who Marco Rubio announced a termination of legal status because of this pardon that Tim Walz did. Let's take a listen.
Weeks ago, a convicted sex offender and a foreign national was shielded from deportation by the governor of Minnesota. Laotian national Tu Le Vang was convicted of repeatedly sexually abusing a 10-year-old girl in the state of Minnesota. He even tried to pay his victim for her silence, and he called his heinous crimes a minor thing. Just days before this foreign sex offender was scheduled to be deported, Tim Walz, the governor, issued him a pardon, setting him free to once again endanger the children of America. Well, this week I revoked his legal status in the United States, and as a result, federal agents took him into custody, and as of today, he has been removed from the United States. Because of our action, this foreign criminal will never pose a threat to any American ever again. Americans must never be forced by their elected leaders to live alongside foreign sex criminals who have no right to begin with to reside in our country. This administration will always stand with the American people and defend them from violent criminals.
Now, we're talking about these sort of candidates, the socialist candidates that we're seeing across the nation. Gubernatorial candidate Francesca Hong said nobody should be cooperating with the enforcers of fascism, that is ICE. She said she wishes Wisconsin would declare a state of emergency over deportations. She says she wants to give state grants to immigrant justice organizations. This is what we're seeing. This is not just rhetoric, but this is reality. These are facts here. This is what they say. When they broadcast, when they publish who they are, believe them. It's very important that you understand the weight behind these statements, because this is who they are. Let's take a listen.
What is being done now, and where do you feel like you could be, protecting the immigrant communities of Wisconsin?
I think that we should have declared a state of emergency. We still have insurgencies. We saw what happened with Brother Salazar Sur, who was abducted by ICE in Milwaukee, held in detention for over 60 days. I was actually very encouraged to see Congresswoman Gwen Moore. She went to Indiana to the detention center to confront ICE agents there. And I think that's what we need to see more of from elected officials, like brawlers, going to the streets with the people, willing not only to take the hits, but show folks that I'm going to take my platform and my privilege and make sure people see what can be done, what our elected officials should be doing.
You mean take the hits? Like what we saw in Minnesota with Alex Preddy and Renee Green? Take the hits because they want to utilize and platform off of these people who are radicalized into believing that America is being attacked or targeted by ICE, when that's not even the truth, because what they were doing is they were impeding law enforcement from conducting their operation. It is illegal to do that. We are to say that this is okay, that we need to get these people, whoever it is, doesn't matter. Let them use their platform. Let them blow this up on social media so that we can use these moments and say, we cannot waste moments like this, because these are times where we can benefit our own party, benefit our own talking points by saying Trump's the bad guy, ICE is the bad guy. When what they've sought to do is to clear America of the crime that we've been seeing that has festered in this country for so long. This is what we see. So there's not just rhetoric, there's evidence. Nick Shirley, who's going through and talking about and exposing the fraud in New York, uncovering 190 million in fraud. As these fraudsters use elderly and needy to commit fraud through adult and personal home care scams in New York City. We also have Malat Quiroz, one of the Democratic socialists, who talks about America deserved 9/11, which sounds like some of the folks in this chat. They deserved 9/11. They had it coming. It's because of the rhetoric. It's because they were so involved in Middle Eastern politics. We have Mamdani, who said during his address, the 250, America 250, And he calls America, he says, many people say America is. Let me see. Let me actually get his. Actual video here, because I think it's actually fascinating to hear him in his own words what he says concerning America versus the contrast of what we heard from Donald Trump about America, what America is, what it actually is. It's a nation that is under God. Let's take a listen.
Of one day moving here. And yet the irony is that the story of America has so often been written by those who were told by others with power and influence and wealth that they were anything but exceptional. For generation after generation, we have been told that when the world has sent its people to our shores, it has not sent its best. It sent Puritans and Sikhs and Quakers and Muslims and Jewish people who were banished for praying the wrong way, worshiping the wrong gods, angering the wrong people. It sent peasants and serfs from slums and shtetls who were treated as less because they hardly owned clothes, let alone land. It sent immigrants from whom power was something someone else had. We are told that America is exceptional because we are richer, stronger, more powerful than everyone else. The truth, my friends, is that America is exceptional because here, nothing is fixed into place. The frontier may be closed, we may have walked on the moon, but the work of fulfilling the values first enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, that work endures, and it belongs to us all. It belongs to our newest Americans, those standing here with me today.
This is where he talks about his rhetoric.
Nearly a decade ago, I too felt what you feel, the joy of no longer being just a New Yorker, but an American too. You each hold a special power, the power to determine what America means. The powerful have always known their answer. America, in their view, is an arena of supremacy, where only a select few are allowed freedom, where not all are created equal.
By the way, what a bogus statement. Because yes, America is for the select few who value freedom, who value that America is a nation founded on Judeo-Christian values, something that Islam is not compatible with. Now, Mamdani swearing on the Quran because he could not swear on the Bible, could not swear on even the Constitution, because that's not what he believes. He will not subscribe to, he will not put his allegiance to America and what it stands for, but rather he would put his allegiance to Allah. That way he can sort of have a clear conscience concerning this. Let's continue on. This rhetoric is very dangerous. And I'm so sorry. You're not even seeing you're not even seeing this. Let me take you there. Sorry. Apologize.
America, if you ask them, becomes less the more people it welcomes. America, they will tell you, belongs only to those with the right accent or the right shade of skin. The rest of us, they insist, should be grateful for merely being allowed to visit. How small they are, how weak, how unoriginal. At every moment in our past, those who led through exclusion and isolation have tried to win power and enrich themselves by turning us against one another. Division is the oldest trick in politics and the cheapest. But time and again, including 250 years ago, those forces of division have been vanquished by the forces of progress. As Thomas Paine once wrote, "This new world hath been the asylum for the persecuted lovers of civil and religious liberty. Hither have they fled." And yet today, too many of our leaders do not believe in a vision of this nation as an asylum for the persecuted, but rather as one that persecutes those seeking asylum. As we mark 250 years, what do we see? We see a city of contradictions within a nation of contradictions. We see the wealthiest country in the history of the world, one where children go to sleep hungry while the world's first trillionaire hungers for more. We see monopolies that dominate every industry and oligarchs who buy elections.
We see a nation that is thriving, a nation that talks about, he says, we see the most kids hungry, going to sleep hungry, when the nation that provides the most welfare to these children Are you kidding me, Zoran Mamdani? The nation that provides the most welfare to families, actually families that aren't even American, where they get thousands upon thousands in SNAP benefits, WIC, when these welfare benefits should be going to American children, American families. But no, he wants to say that we're a nation of children who go to bed hungry. Richest nation where children go to bed hungry. But contrast that again with Donald Trump's speech at America's 250. It's absolutely a huge difference. Because we see one that is lies, like Zoran Mamdani, and then we see who's speaking with truth. What this nation actually is. People hate that. People despise that. Let's take a listen. Let me find the... Yeah, I think this is the exact clip here.
So tonight, let us say clearly and proudly what makes Americans so unique and extraordinary. We're going to give our country its identity back. Above all, Americans love freedom. We cherish independence, and we know that we are the heirs to the most beautiful land, the most thrilling story, and the most precious legacy on which the sun has ever shined. In America, we do not need anyone's permission to say what we think and to live as we please, to worship as we choose, or to keep and bear arms. You know that.
An armed citizenry protects us from government that overreaches. Is this a right or is it a privilege? It is a right. Because the Constitution in which we have speaks of this right that we are given, that it cannot be taken away by government, but it is given by a creator who endowed us with these rights. And so we see this manifested throughout the chat. Manifested because we're witnessing a split division between a huge chasm that is created when we have the contrast, as we see Mamdani, who had this speech, who wanted to make a big moment for himself, versus what Donald Trump was saying. Despite your point of view of Donald Trump, who cares? What matters is that he brings truth here. And you'll hear it in a moment here.
And for almost 6 years during my presidency, I've saved almost single-handedly, but working with John and some other great people, we've saved your Second Amendment, and I will continue to do so, I promise. Our rights here, given to us by the God who made us, and those rights shall not be infringed. Americans believe in self-reliance. We look at success with envy not, and I say that some people are envious and some people are not. We are not, but with admiration, and we earn it, and we will always earn it, and we will always respect it. We are an incredible, good, kind, and generous people, always ready to help a friend or a neighbor in need. No one has ever given more to charity, ended more hunger, cured more disease, or done more to uplift humanity than Americans, and no country ever will be able to match it.
Again, truth. Truth. Because it seems that when the world is in chaos, America is always at the forefront, always at the front of the line, ready to give, ready to aid wherever it needs help. Venezuela, we've seen this. We've seen America try to give the Persians back their land. And albeit this situation more tricky, we don't want boots on the ground. We don't want American boots on the ground. A situation that has to be navigated carefully and effectively. And many other instances where we can see America as at the forefront to provide aid to the nation in which is in need.
Thank you. So true. Americans honor excellence. We admire boldness. We respect ambition. We are a nation of dreamers and believers, warriors and explorers, doers and fighters. In every human endeavor, Americans see an unfinished competition. What is strong can be made stronger. What is fast can be made faster. What is great can be made greater than ever before. And that's what's happening with America. Show us a mountain and we'll just climb it. Show us an ocean and we'll just cross it. Show us a problem and we will just solve it. Show us a task the world calls impossible and Americans will get it done. Americans are strong and always ready to stand firm for a good cause. We treasure justice, fairness, family, honesty, and human dignity, unlike societies based on class, clan, or tribe.
Which is where the democratic socialists are headed towards quickly. If we aren't vocal about their issues, and not only just vocal, but getting involved in the local elections, they will quickly overtake an economy if you let them. When you say, it's okay, we'll just not get involved this time. Their ideas are so far out there. How could they possibly win? Well, they push the Overton window. They continue to push until it becomes acceptable, until it becomes policy. This is what they've done. Now, democratic socialists, when people thought America, socialism, couldn't be compatible. America's capitalist society. This is what we thrive on. I'm going to play the rest, excuse me.
We see every citizen as an individual, equal under the law and equal under the eyes of the Lord. In America, we speak English because that is the language of our founding, and for 1,000 years, that has been the language of freedom. An American always wants peace and order, but we will never shrink from danger or threat. We will always fight, 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 and win, win, win. We got to do that. Because this is our culture, this is our character. Not every American is all of these things, but every American knows these are the traits that make our country exceptional, and exceptional it is. You do not have to be born here, but you do have to love what we have built. You must love our country. There has never been anything like us anywhere on earth, and we are not going to let anyone take that away. Yet as we approach this magnificent anniversary, we see our American identity under a renewed attack. A generation after we fought and won the Cold War against the menace of communism, there is now a resurgence of the communist menace in our land, including from newcomers to our country who embrace ideas totally opposed to our way of life and our great success. These are not mere political disagreements like differences over taxes or regulations. Communism is a mortal threat to American liberty. It is the greatest threat to our country, including World War I, World War II, Pearl Harbor, or even 9/11. We're not going to let this happen to us. Believe me, we're not letting it happen. Because communism is the enemy of free people everywhere in the world. Never works. It's the enemy of the Constitution. Above all, it's the enemy of July 4th, 1776. It is the enemy indeed. Even while the radicals and extremists attack our incredible history at every turn, they are silent on the miserable history of communism itself, because it never worked. Thousands of years, if you look at it, under different names, under somewhat different ideologies and systems. That system has led to more death and destruction than any system ever tried. It killed 100 million people just in the last century alone. Communism is the exact opposite of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's death, tyranny, and the pursuit of evil. The godless communist morality states that anything is justified to bring about inhuman visions and to really propose what's good. They don't want good. They don't love God, and they don't want God. They don't love religion, and they don't want religion, and they won't have it. But we will not let them win. They have no chance.
And he said it. Right? The leaders who have practiced communism, and what they ultimately get rid of course, they get rid of, they adapt the theories of Karl Marx. And what they seek to do is to get rid of religion, of course. And so you have Lenin, Stalin, Mao, Castro. Many of these examples, Vietnam, what happened there, the examples that we've seen in history where communism kills vast amount of people simply for being an economy where they want to adapt these state-run systems that sound appealing, like free buses, free childcare. And the problem that we see arise out of places like New York, we see that New York, in Zoran Mamdani's world, in his town, when he talks about that they've balanced the budget, they're going to give these, the renters who are, rather the landlords who are neglecting their responsibilities, but you see the landlord's position as to what apparently is being neglected is because the way in which the state prevents them from making certain, because of the fees, the policies, the repairs that they need in order to keep up with these demands. And so they seek to do that. They fall behind because of the way in these environmentalists, the way in which they delay every step of the process to prevent them from being positioned to be in the, what's the word I'm looking for? As Zoran Mamdani put it, if you guys watch the block by block let's see if I can find the clip here. Because I think the context, this is it right here. Transfer ownership of private property from landlords to the community. They want to seize this property if they're not. I'll just play this clip here. Better if I just do that. That way you can get his words.
When necessary, we will take aggressive legal action to remove negligent owners and property managers.
Negligence. That's what I was talking. That's the word I was trying to say.
And for buildings that have suffered chronic neglect, we will work to transfer ownership to responsible stewards. Stewards that include community land trusts, nonprofits, or even the tenants.
Now he says even the tenants themselves, which the audio cut out there. Now, how do you expect a tenant who's falling behind on rent to be able to, I don't know, take care of a property they did not purchase? If they give it over to the tenant, what does that even mean? Set them as a manager so they can, earn a salary? Is that what they mean? But it's still owned by the government, still owned by Mayor Zohran Mamdani to be able to use the government in order to, utilize this for whatever. Make money off of it. Interesting. I want to know your thoughts. freedomandequallyyokeshow.com. Look, these aren't things that we share just for rhetoric, because this is them in their own words. This is how they communicate. This is what they say. We need to beware of those who are broadcasting, publishing. When they tell you who they are, believe them. When they publish their plan, believe them. This is what they are. This is who they are. And they are telling you, and they're being very clear. They don't have to be any more clear than what they're telling you through media. Subscribe to the podcast. If you're just joining in, thanks so much for being here. You missed a good portion of the show, and I pray that you come back for the next one. God bless you. And Junk Solid, you say, when Dems regain power, the U.S. is done, and you're right. I 100% agree with you, because they will do anything they will do everything in their power, anything and everything. They will take over to create a society to where they will say, you know what? Let's end elections. It's serious. Don't believe me? Just take a listen to this clip. I think this is incredible when you're looking at what their plan is, what they seek to do. Let's take it. Charlie Kirk was at the forefront of this. Let's take a listen.
Time out. Just read them in their own words. Don't even take my commentary for it. Just read what they are saying. Something has changed in the last 24 to 36 hours where all of a sudden, boom, they're just saying bluntly and plainly, forget this election stuff. The 14th Amendment operates as a cheat code to try to get whatever you want. As we said yesterday, and we came under attack from the media, and I don't care, the 14th Amendment was a great thing. It did a great thing. However, it was too sloppily and broadly written so that it could cancel elections, ignore the debt ceiling, birthright citizenship, and all of that. That's all from the 14th Amendment. And whatever you call it, if you call it a tampered election, an interfered with election, a canceled election, a damaged election, whatever, it is clear that the ruling class, the philosopher kings and queens, and the academics of the regime do not want to have a normally constitutionally administered election. That is a fact. Read them in their own words. Don't even speculate beyond it. Why? This is because the indictments aren't working. That's why. They see it, they feel it, and they're panicking.
Now, he shows an article. I want to say this is prior to this little bit of speech here, or it would have been somewhere in this podcast talking about these elections that they want to seek to get rid of. And we saw from The Atlantic, the New York Post, where they're talking about Americans vote too much. Let's take a listen. It's right here.
They have a plan. And in perfect harmony, after The Atlantic yesterday says Trump should not be allowed on the ballot, and then the New York Times says elections are bad for democracy, what does The Atlantic then publish? Shot, chaser, boom, Atlantic. Americans vote too much. So you have The Atlantic saying Trump should not be allowed on the ballot. You have the New York Times saying elections are bad for democracy, and The Atlantic saying Americans vote too much. This is confirmation of what we have been saying all along. The idea that you can vote bothers them.
They want to actually just elect randomly. And you go into this idea that was mentioned in the chat that if the left comes back into power, they will destroy America. They will. And you say this is why Charlie Kirk was oft too dangerous of a thought process. Now, if you go back and you look at his podcasts from 2023 and onward, you can go back even further. How close he was to every piece of politic that was happening in America, even the geopolitics outside of America. He was so spot on that, yes, it was dangerous because the left understood him to be very analytical in his thinking. That he knew he was steps ahead of them. Steps ahead of them to understand their moves and where they would eventually go, depending on, who was in play, which political leader, which person was in play. And it's because this is his world. This is what he engulfed in. But not only that, was he undoubtedly always seeking truth. And that truth is the Word of God. And the Word of God tells us specifically to demand the welfare of the nation. We know this. We've heard this. We know that it is God who establishes kings. He raises up kings. And as Benjamin Franklin said, which we've said on this podcast plenty of times, that God governs in the affairs of man. Ben Franklin. So the one who establishes these kings and these people in authority, that is God himself, when you begin to seek the one who has the truth will lead you and guide you to help you to, I wouldn't say interpret politics, but to have discernment over politics, discernment over, and this guy made connections, of course. And this thought process that he spoke of on his podcast, they saw it as a threat. They saw him as a threat to their Leviathan.
The idea that you might be able to vote securely irritates them. Plato famously came up with this idea of the philosopher king who knows better. This is why they always say in their articles, experts say, experts say, experts say. They want America to be governed by a secret society of unelected. That is what the administrative state is built on. Not the people. And they're trying to grind that down. You can't make this up. The Atlantic, Americans vote too much. I thought the whole idea is to vote all the time. Isn't that the promise of democracy? No, they want oligarchy. They always have. An idea of representative government is too much of a risk. That means you have to talk to the plebes that you oversee. You have to listen to the peasants. You have to pander to the serfs. They want a permanent, untouchable, unquestionable, worshipped administrative state oligarchy. And they get away with it. And yes, the people on television are saying, "Oh yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of elections."
Now, the bloated government, that the Democrats see to it, that they create jobs and they say, well, we've added such and such amount of jobs. We know that it was government jobs, jobs that we saw, especially during COVID-19. What they were doing is they were going to work for 2 days out of the month. They just had to show up. They do this at the end of the month. They met their quota, and this is why Trump had to establish that all federal agents need to get back to office. We're no longer in this COVID era period. If you remember at the beginning of his term, second term, that this was established, that we need to bring these federal governments, federal agents back into the office because of what they are doing. They're getting these private sector jobs. They're getting these additional income jobs in order to what? Get more income when they're already being paid by the tax dollar. This is what they're allowed. This is what they are required to be paid as a federal agent. And so we have this removal of bloat. And then you see that as time progressed, we saw that Donald Trump added more jobs, not federal government jobs, but there was more jobs because of manufacturing. All of this coming back to America. Instead of shipping jobs overseas, we're bringing jobs back into America. And that's by strength. That's by peace through strength. And of course, the issue that we're dealing with right now is indeed oil. Is this position with Iran that we're trying to navigate, that Donald Trump is trying to navigate to end this war, to finally conclude what may be at the end of it, I don't know, maybe a regime change. What they're hoping for is an internal regime change. But of course, this is dangerous for the folks who are the Persians who are living in Iran. Their internet gets cut out. They don't know what's going on. They don't know sort of how to gauge because they're sort of blinded. This sort of economic EMP, but they don't know what's happening on the outside of their country unless they're allowed to see, unless the internet blockage gets lifted. And so you see what they're peddling lies on, the American networks, they're pushing them over to the Iranian state media and saying, look, we're winning. We're doing, America's doing nothing to our economy. We're absolutely prosperous when their inflation is at an all-time high. I believe the number is staggering. It's at 88.6 inflation rate. Red meat and poultry prices surging up to 178%. You're seeing the death of these social media influencers. You're seeing the death of wrestlers that are being put for public execution. And somehow we're supposed to be okay. But where is the crowd of the, free Palestinians, the Free Palestine group? Why aren't they saying, free the Persians from the genocide that is happening by their own government, by their own regime? It's because they'll stick with the lies that they want to hear. They'll stick with those and it'll be sufficient for them. But to conclude, we know that God is in control. That despite the evil that we see, we know God is not the one who creates this evil. He allows the evil because humanity has wanted to make it known that they want to be God, or they want to be like God, in control of their own lives, in control of what they want as their idol. That is politics. That is my body, my choice. That is, you name it. Identity politics. This is their God. This is what they believe. And this is what they will hold to until they die. This is their belief. And so God, who gives us the standard as to how we are to be as a nation, trusting in God, trusting in the Lord. He says here, blessed, this is Daniel saying, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to them to them that know understanding. He reveals the deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells in him. You want to get your hand on the pulse of American politics, you got to first know the truth, and the truth is the one that is going to guide you in this world that is chaotic. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. Email me your thoughts, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing. Mostly 80 to 90% of you that watch this show don't subscribe or aren't subscribed. Please consider subscribing. We'll be back on this show, Lord willing, tomorrow, and we will talk about some of the other crazy things that we continue to see day to day. One thing that I do want to mention is that these pestilence, these earthquakes that we're seeing around the world, quite incredible. We're seeing California not even just California, but America is being ridden with these diseases. And they can't say this what is it? Cyclospora, this parasite outbreak. We know that our goods that are imported from outside of the country, about 30 to 40%, I want to say, these produce, and people can't say, well, where is this originating from? Well, what do you think? Who do you think is trying to kill America? Who do you think is trying to attack America from within? They can do it by produce. They can do it by means of biolabs that are hidden in Nevada. They can do it however they want. They just say the word and they will go for it. You say, why have I never heard of this parasite before? I'm not sure if you're being sarcastic, but there is a Cyclospora parasite outbreak that is causing explosive diarrhea. And you begin to see that this only originates, this parasite originates from warmer tropical areas. Let me see. Humid, hot. Basically, it originates from the feces of infected humans, but tropical, subtropical regions of the world, including parts of Central and South America, the Caribbean, Asia, and Africa. Cilantro, basil, raspberries, or raspberries, if you want to call it, and lettuce have been contaminated with the parasite, but these are imported produce. So you could say, well, how did they do this? Where are we getting this? Where are we getting this from? They're saying, well, we can't pinpoint. Nonsense. This is why we need to go back to American farmers. Keep it local, keep it grown. We know this is a huge problem in America. We want to get people, we want to get this economy back on track. We need to also look to the farmers. So much to talk about here concerning this. But anyway, despite that, I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless you. Thanks so much for being here. And consider subscribing to the podcast. Email me your thoughts, freedom@equallyyokeshow. Last time, just set it out there. Thanks so much for your comments. Thanks for your chats to see what you guys are thinking concerning all of this. Rob Sack, you say it comes from dirty water, dirty fecal, the feces of infected humans. That's where it apparently originates. Most commonly epidemic to and contracted in tropical and subtropical regions. People typically contract the infection by ingesting water or raw, fresh produce. This is what we're seeing. And yes, the earthquakes, I mentioned it briefly. I know it's kind of signed off, but mentioned it briefly. We're seeing these earthquakes around the world. Earthquakes are, what's new about earthquakes? Nothing new about earthquakes. We're witnessing an uptick that creation is growing. Creation is groaning for its creator. We know that in the book of Luke, we see that Jesus warns people that of the last days, you'll see these growing wars and rumors of wars, pestilence, earthquakes, famine. It's growing. But these are the beginning of sorrows. But don't be dismayed by this. Just know that your redemption draws near. I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless.